The Alberta government announced this week that it would opt out of the federal dental care program. It's the right choice, of course. In the days since, longtime business owners and dentists have been reporting that the program is creating chaos at their places of work. It's also being reported that the plan will create confusion, which happens basically anytime the Liberal government puts forward new legislation. Justin Trudeau's Liberals are trailing the Conservatives by 20 points, and this week faced a devastating loss in the once Liberal stronghold of Toronto St. Paul's. But until an election is called, we're all just buckling down and praying that the damage done to our country can and will be undone by a strong Conservative government. The reason an election hasn't been called, of course, is the cowardice of Jagmeet Singh's NDP, who make a big show about supporting the working class, even when it's clear the working class no longer supports the government the NDP upholds. Singh is simultaneously one of the most useless politicians who's also wreaking the most havoc on our country, if you can wrap your head around that seeming paradox. In fact, it's his party that's been pushing for a national dental care program in return for supporting the Liberals. But instead, the Liberals offered him this watered-down plan that Alberta doesn't want because even Trudeau doesn't respect him. So it should come as no surprise that the new Alberta NDP leader wants to distance himself from Singh. And if the effort to divorce the Alberta NDP from Singh's unpopular federal branch is successful, it could spell a headache for Danielle Smith and the United Conservative Party. I'm Rachel Emmanuel, and this is the Alberta Roundup.
Rachel Emmanuel brings the news each day on Alberta Roundup. She has her say.
Okay, everyone, taking a look at our first story here. Alberta is opting out of the federal dental care program, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith told the federal government this week. In a letter, she said the plan infringes on provincial jurisdiction. She wrote, quote, "If a new health program was to be developed by the federal government, it should be done in full collaboration with provinces and territories, and discussions should have occurred before these intentions are announced. Unfortunately, this did not occur." The Premier also said that Alberta is still expecting its monetary portion of the federal program, which they would then use to help low-income Albertans afford dental care. She added, quote, "We anticipate our respective officials can negotiate mutually agreeable terms within a 2-year time frame and plan to opt out by 2026. Last December, Ottawa promised to spend $13 billion over 5 years on the plan. Canadians who filed a tax return earning less than $90,000 per year and have no access to dental care insurance are eligible. The program already covers kids under 12 and seniors over the age of 65, and it's now been expanded to cover those under the age of 18, as well as those with a valid disability tax credit certificate. The Alberta Dental Association president-elect said the program creates a lot more paperwork. He added, quote, "On top of that, though, there is just such an unknown. We don't quite know who is even covered." Dr. Hans Hirschen is one of the 60 to 70% of Alberta dentists not yet signed up for the program. He's concerned over misinformation and said patients come in expecting free dental care when they may still have to pay out of pocket. Dr. Hirschen also said, quote, "This is not a free program. That's a very real concern. So many Canadians have been told their dental will now be free." Meanwhile, president of the Canadian Dental Association said he's hearing reports of dental offices where administrators are now spending up to an hour a day explaining the program to patients. Dr. Joel Antle also said the program will limit patient choice, saying, quote, "You are also going to have people left in a very sad situation of having to go to dental office asking, 'Are you taking part?'" Taking a look at our next story here, federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh says he's united with Alberta New Democrats, even as that party's new leader seeks to distance himself from Jagmeet Singh's NDP. On Saturday, former Calgary Mayor Naheed Nenshi was crowned leader of the Alberta NDP in a decisive leadership contest. And he quickly told reporters that he would be putting the question to his membership of whether they should divorce from the federal party, something he first pitched during his campaign. But Singh says the two parties remain united in their goal of defeating Conservatives federally and provincially. Take a listen.
Right now, at the provincial level in Alberta, provincially in a lot of places, Conservatives are a threat to the people. Conservatives are directly attacking healthcare, education. They're even attacking pensions. So in Alberta, New Democrats are united with a very clear goal of defeating Danielle Smith, who is a real threat to Canadians, who's a real threat to Albertans. And nationally, New Democrats are also united. We've got to replace Justin Trudeau, and we've got to defeat Conservatives. But Pierre Poilievre also wants to do the same things as Danielle Smith. He wants to cut healthcare. He wants to take away people's services. He wants to cut and gut the things that you need.
members of provincial NDP branches automatically become members of the federal NDP. That feature is unique to the NDP of Canada's major political parties, and it's also something the United Conservative Party government has used to successfully attack the Alberta NDP, considering Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's extreme unpopularity across Canada, but of course in Alberta as well, and the fact that the federal NDP continue propping him up. They are the reason we are not already in an election. On Saturday, Nenshi told reporters, quote, "That's what members are really talking about, and I hear it every day. And the way I like to lead is, I don't like things that are bubbling under the surface. So I'd like to surface that conversation with members as soon as possible." Differences in party policy has created problems for the provincial party in energy-rich Alberta. For example, Nenshi and former Alberta NDP leader Rachel Emmanuel both supported the Trans Mountain Pipeline project, but federal leader Jagmeet Singh didn't. Still, Notley told the Calgary Herald last week that plans to divorce from the federal party are, quote, "silly, superficial, and short-sighted." It's been 1 week since former Calgary Mayor Naheed Nenshi was crowned leader of the Alberta NDP, and already the United Conservative Party has released 2 attack ads about the new leader. Those ads have criticized his record on taxes as the mayor of Calgary and his relationship to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Take a look.
New NDP leader Naheed Nenshi is Justin Trudeau's choice for Alberta. That's Nenshi helping Justin Trudeau defeat Stephen Harper in the 2015 federal election. When asked about Nenshi running for the NDP, Trudeau called Nenshi a strong mayor and said we should welcome his candidacy. Trudeau even tried to get Nenshi to run for his federal Liberal Party. We've had enough of Trudeau in Ottawa. We don't need one in Alberta. Naheed Nenshi, Trudeau's choice for Alberta.
The Calgary mayor has responded in kind. Here's what he had to say.
You know what? They are nothing if not predictable. I've said for a long time that Danielle Smith and the UCP government only know how to do 2 things. They know how to pick fights and they know how to waste money. And now here they are, picking a fight with me and wasting big bucks on ads doing so. What do you think they're so scared of? They're trying to define me for you, but they can't do it because you know me. I've been around, and Lord knows no one has ever accused me of being quiet. And I am proud of what we've built together.
Moving into our next story here, a new survey from the Angus Reid Institute found that Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is the 4th most popular premier in Canada. She received the green light from 45% of Albertans, trailing Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe, Newfoundland and Labrador Premier Andrew Furry, and in first place, Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew. Ontario's Doug Ford and New Brunswick's Blaine Higgs tied for dead last. Moving into our controversy of the week, while speaking at the Black Canadian Women in Action conference in Calgary on Thursday, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith said that the province has to address systemic barriers to entrepreneurs of color to grow international and domestic trade. The Premier said, quote, "We recognize that local businesses and entrepreneurs face challenges relating to this community, and support for the Black community must extend beyond strictly business supports. And we're happy to address anti-racism and systemic barriers faced by offering feedback that some face difficulty addressing capital." Meanwhile, Calgary Mayor Jyoti Gondek tried to draw commonalities between the water crisis in Calgary and women in sub-Saharan Africa dragging water to their homes. She said, quote, "The gendered burden of water collection and conservation is true amongst traditional North American Indigenous cultures, as well as in Africa, and quite frankly, throughout the world. In nearly 80% of households that are lacking direct water access, women and girls bear the primary responsibility for water collection." I am, of course, not surprised to see Calgary Mayor Jyoti Gondek resort to race posturing, although I do think it is quite ironic that she's comparing women who have to carry water to their homes to the crisis ongoing in Calgary, which of course was caused by her government. So please don't try to seem relatable on that front. Maybe if your government was less focused on banning plastic bags and Canada Day celebrations, you would have had a little more time to check out what's going on with our basic water infrastructure. However, I was disappointed to see Alberta Premier Danielle Smith resort to this race posturing. I think people are getting a little tired of it. It's my question of the week for you all. Do you think these comments are appropriate, or are you too tired of the race pandering? Speaking of Calgary Mayor Jyoti Gondek, that brings us to what we're watching in the weeks to come. There's only one politician in Canada who's less popular than Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and it's the Calgary Mayor herself. According to new data from Think HQ, Calgary Mayor Jyoti Gondek has an approval rating of just 26%. That's 2 points less than Justin Trudeau, who sits at 28%. Think HQ has been collecting data since 2014 when Naheed Nenshi was the mayor. And for context, he had an approval rating of 74% at the start of his term, and that dropped to 57% by the time he left the role in 2021. Think HQ President Mark Henry said, quote, "These ratings are unprecedentedly low. They've managed to break their own record for low approval ratings set in December of last year, and it seems driven primarily by negative public reactions to policies like the single-use bag bylaw and blanket rezoning." Finally, moving into our weekly comment roundup, and make sure you stick around till the end as I have a very exciting announcement, as I promised you all, this week on Wednesday. But first, taking a look at some of these comments, user Kevin Buswalo says, if you have the best lawyers and an endless budget, then why jump to Trudeau's bozo laws? Confront them and challenge them in court. This is lunacy. That was, of course, in response to my question last week as to whether or not companies should fight the Trudeau government when they infringe on our charter rights. That was in response to news that Pathways Alliance had scrubbed their website because of new legislation proposed by the Trudeau government, which would force companies to prove their environmental record against some undefined global standard. Companies responded and said, this is unclear and we could be held liable for this. So companies like Pathway Alliance scrubbed their website. And I said, maybe some people with the big buck should stick around and actually fight the Trudeau government. I think this is a big problem that we have in Canada. Nobody wants to put their money where their mouth is. People are very apathetic. They also don't want to put their time where their mouth is. So they roll over and they comply too quickly with bogus policies and laws, when they should stand up and fight, and that's the reason why our country looks the way it does today. Finally, user Andy Nichols said, quote, "Why are you living in Alberta? You obviously don't understand the Western culture. Albertans work hard and play hard. The Stampede is a celebration of agriculture, ranching, and yes, Indigenous contribution to the Western way of life. If you think that the Midway is what it's about, you missed the boat, or should I say the chuck wagon, when you moved here. Calgary brings in the best Canadian and international country and Western musicians, as well as popular music. So put on a cowboy hat and cowboy boots and learn to square dance. You might actually have fun." He was responding to my controversial statement last week that I don't really enjoy the Calgary Stampede. I would prefer to spend my free time in a bit of a quieter and more relaxing environment. Listen, this may come as a surprise to you, but not everyone moves to Alberta or even to Calgary for the Calgary Stampede. And some of us don't enjoy loud crowds and lots of drinking. There are other ways to enjoy Western culture. I would argue that if you want to get a true Stampede feel, you're probably better off doing that in Ponoka. I definitely enjoyed seeing all the races, like the Chuck Wagon races there a few years ago, and I think I would prefer to drive up and check out their Stampede than be stuck in busy and loud Calgary, but to each their own. Okay, everyone, and as promised, my big announcement for you all. Beginning next week, I will be starting a new podcast on Wednesdays called Rachel and the Republic, in which, you guessed it, I will be covering American politics, beginning with a close look at the US election. I hope that you all caught Thursday's debate, but if you didn't, I'll be sure to have a rundown for you on Wednesday. So make sure that you are subscribed to True North so you don't miss that show. Okay, everyone, that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I hope that you guys have a great weekend, and I will see you on Wednesday.